In the previous part we started looking at the private life of the women in Versailles. Today we will continue this walk back in time, to see what was life really like for women at Versailles? Part 2. The idea one would be faithful to their spouse at Versailles was laughable, and women had just as many affairs as men. The only exception, theoretically, was the Queen, of course, since having a boyfriend was essentially treason. Practically, however, this reason didn't necessarily stop them. Marie Antoinette, for example, is thought to have had at least one long-standing relationship with the Swedish Count Axel von Fersen. Less important women could have enjoyed their affairs with much less scandal, and the ultimate success was having an affair with the king himself, and to make matters more shocking, this alone was an official position. The maîtresse en titre. One such a mistress, whose name lived through history, is Madame de Pompadour. She was favorite of Louis XV and lasted in the position for 20 years, and gained immense political power. To be fair, being king's mistress had its perks definitely, a great apartment in the palace near the king's, tons of respect and power. Also your children could be recognized by the king and given titles and land. Yet, being at the top inevitably gains you enemies. Families would try to get their attractive daughters to catch the king's attention, hoping this will elevate them in the hierarchy. One of Louis XIV's official mistresses, Louise de la Valliere, found all this games way too stressful and gave everything up to become a nun. One of the reasons behind bringing all the aristocrats to Versailles in the first place was so they could be on hand to serve the royal family. For women, this meant getting close to and finding favor with the queen. In a period when women had almost no power or authority, becoming an official part of the queen's court meant serious respect. These were official positions, with titles, honors, rules, and perks. If you couldn't get a job with the queen, then roles in the courts of other royal women could be a consolation prize. And women at Versailles played a central role in the patronage system. What does it mean? Basically, any woman in power. The only women in power are the ones close to the king, from his mistresses to his sisters, could tell him who to appoint to positions, male or female. Courtiers were in constant competition for the right to serve the royals. Some roles were inherited, while others could be bought, but many were just given out by a particular royal to friends, patrons, or someone who caught their attention for being notably beautiful or intellectual. There was good reason to tear and claw for these positions. The Princess de Lamballe, for example, was made superintendent of the Queen's household. This meant everything had to go through her, kind of like a chief of staff, a huge amount of power. She received a truly enormous yearly allowance, as well as a large suite of rooms at Versailles. One of the most time-consuming activities back in the days was letter writing. From today's technologically advanced perspective, this part of their daily lives routine oftentimes is overlooked. By the time of Versailles construction, travel was becoming easier and more common. On top of this, the process of sending and delivering mail was getting streamlined. This meant people often needed to communicate with others far away and had a way to do it, so letter writing exploded. Frederick the Great called the French the first letter writers of Europe. Back when Facebook wasn't so popular, there were numerous different types of letters one could engage oneself with. Women at Versailles needed to let their friends in Paris and other places know all the gossip at the seat of power. Foreign women, including the ones who married into the French royal family, needed to write home. There were thank you notes for everything, even when Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI, who had some misunderstanding in terms of sexual activity and weren't able to conceive a child for 7 years, wrote her brother a note of gratitude after he explained the birds and the bees to them. There were love letters to your affair partner, tons of them in a complex code of course. There were even anonymous letters, in the hope of ruining a rival's reputation. So yeah, there were a lot of letters written on daily basis, Probably tons. In fact, there were so many letters that some women even published their own as memoirs, which were extremely popular with readers. Hanging around Versailles, with no option of leaving it, unless you want to kiss your influence goodbye, and just dressing up, gossiping and complaining about everything and everyone all day, every day could get really, really boring. In general, European aristocrats in the 17th and 18th century found ways to get past this boredom, and all of them became full-blown gambling addicts. And the women were the worst of them all. In fact, gambling was an integral part of life at Versailles. Louis XIV saw these types of games as another way of turning his courtiers against each other and keeping them too busy with frivolities to challenge his rule. So gambling at the palace quickly became so extravagant and intense that Versailles earned the nickname Stripot, gambling den. Mastering different games was so important asset, if you want to be part of the high society, so social climbing parents hired gaming professionals to teach their children the different rules. This included any daughters, because it was just as important that they learned, if not more so. At a time when women had no political power and usually no financial independence, gambling allowed them access to importance and their own money. Women led the fashion for new types of gambling games, and one sure way to get noticed by people who might not give you the time of day otherwise was to throw the best parties where everyone could throw away their inheritances. Living at Versailles might have meant breaking all the rules in the Bible on a regular basis, but you were still expected to go to church. No matter how lax one's morals were in between church services, attending they, and being seen to attend, were of the utmost importance. Louis XIV considered himself the most important person in the Catholic Church, regardless of what the Pope might have to say about that. He also persecuted those who subscribed to different Christian denominations. So showing up for Mass and being super into the whole thing was self-preservation, in both an ethereal and very earthly way. The King's Mass was every single morning at 10 a.m. Court ladies had their own section to themselves. The service lasted half an hour, with a new piece of music sung every day. And also the church could be much more than once a day. The important rule was, you should never skip your church time. What do you think? Was life in Versailles much different compared to the life of modern celebrities? Let me know in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe to Fun Facts History channel and ring the bell to be notified for more informative videos. Thank you for watching.